Have you ever wondered if Reddit ads could actually work for you? Hey, I'm Brainy Zaney. I don't run an ad agency. I just spend my own money testing Reddit ads for my own brand. So we're going to do a SWOT analysis, which is my favorite type of analysis. We're just going to do Reddit's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with real numbers and real ups. Stick around and enjoy the show. Starting your paid ads journey on a new platform is a lot like a first date. There's a lot of obsessing, worrying about your return on spend, frequently checking your phone, and a lot of complaining. One thing about first dates, though, is that you don't get to swat your first date, unless, of course, they're getting too handsy. But here with advertising, we can openly swat, so let's get started. Reddit's number one strength is definitely its cheap cost per click. Reddit is still a massive underdog in 2025 with 100 million daily active users on the platform. And from this chart here, you can see that the cost per click can range anywhere from 20 cents to $1.50 or over, which for internet ads is actually quite decent. In comparison, Meta is a bit pricier, starting at 50 cents per click to $2 per click. But you have to remember that Facebook's targeting is just really on another level, mostly thanks to Facebook's rather casual relationship with privacy law interpretation. And then there's LinkedIn, which hits harder than your rent, with clicks going up to $10 each. If you want to burn money faster than a Vegas bachelor party, look no further than LinkedIn. And this actually leads us to Reddit's greatest strength, which is its retargeting. Reddit is a great platform for retargeting since the average Reddit user spends a whopping 18 minutes per session, which is 6 times more than Instagram. And for those of you who don't know, retargeting is basically when somebody visits your website and then leaves, and you keep reminding them about your website every so often so they don't forget about your very forgettable website. You should know that visitors who are retargeted are 2 to 3 times more likely to convert than traffic that you're kind of targeting cold. So retargeting is also relatively straightforward to do, as you just slap on your Reddit pixels to your website, and you don't even really need great ad creatives here in my experience to just make conversions. Again, in this case, you just need to show up, and I mean that quite literally. And for Reddit, retargeting is great, and it's also quite cheap. Reddit's strength number 3, its underdog culture. Despite its IPO, Reddit still has a very particular culture that makes it quite unique and surprisingly friendly with the small guy, which I'm assuming is you in this video. Unlike Facebook or Google, where deep pockets usually win, Reddit is one of the few places where smart, scrappy brands can punch above their weight if they play their cards right. Let's talk about weaknesses, but first, if you've made it this far without clicking away, maybe hit that subscribe button. This is my first YouTube video, and if it's something you enjoyed, I'll be sure to put out some more. Now let's talk about Reddit weaknesses. Reddit weakness number 1 being Reddit's deep hatred of ads. Those of us that grew up on Reddit over the years have seen it change. One thing has been consistent, though, is that Redditors hating ads with the theory that Ron Swanson hates the federal government. And here's the thing, you need to not take it personally. It's just baked into Reddit's DNA, not for the faint of heart. But honestly, I feel like that's one of the main reasons that young entrepreneurs get discouraged from advertising on Reddit in the first place, is that it can be pretty brutal. But this can actually work to your advantage if you, 1, grow thick skin, or 2, figure out how to make your ads not look like ads. Reddit weakness number 2 being its immature targeting. Reddit is super late to the game when it comes to ad tools and targeting. In my estimate, their targeting tech is about a decade behind. Reddit launched back in 2005, but it didn't roll out its first self-serve ad platform until about 2015, which is 10 years later. In 2015, if you wanted to advertise, you basically email somebody at Reddit being like, oh, hey, geez, can I get a banner slot on Thursday to Sunday? And they reply back like, oh, geez, Thursday's booked. How about Monday? And you'd reply back like, oh, geez, does that cost less or more? This is in 2015 with 60 million daily active users. That's kind of mind-boggling to think about. Today in 2025, there are 2 ways to target audiences on Reddit. Subreddits are keywords, and they are what they sound like. First is subreddit targeting, which I recommend, is targeting your ads by the subreddit. That's my go-to because it's precise. Imagine, for example, you're selling a cool new printer. You can post on r/Dunder-Mifflin and reach the accounting department. Keyword targeting, on the other hand, is by keyword. But here's the thing. Just because you upvoted or use a keyword on Reddit doesn't really necessarily mean you're interested in a topic. This example, instead of reaching Pam and Oscar at Dunder-Mifflin, you might reach Creed because the word printer popped up once when he was trying to flip stolen office equipment on Craigslist. So to me, subreddit targeting seems more robust, and I have data from my own experience advertising to back that up. So when it comes to retargeting, Reddit's actually pretty accurate. It's just not accurate when it comes to targeting, but it's accurate when it comes to retargeting. And to be fair, because of the pixel, there's not a lot of tech for Reddit to fuck up here. It's pretty basic. The bottom line here is that if you're targeting cold traffic, your creators are going to have to do all the heavy lifting, which is really a perfect segue into my next section. Now, let's talk about opportunities. Reddit opportunity number 1 performs well if ads are native to the platform. Look, this isn't unique to Reddit. You should always try to advertise in a way that feels native to whatever platform you're on, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever. But in Reddit, you can really get these outsized return if you crack engagement because the cost per click is already dirt cheap, and that's where the magic happens. So let's talk about some examples on how you could post ads natively to Reddit. The first class of advertisement that works really well for us on Reddit is memes. For this, I'm going to showcase some of the style of memes that have printed revenue for my brand specifically. At Rocket Devs, our ideal customer profile are bootstrap founders that need developers. So it turns out that if you're a bootstrap founder, finding a full-time dev that A, you can afford, B, is competent, and C, gives a shit is hard. And that's really the problem we solve. Let me show you some of the styles of memes that have printed revenue for us. The first being this Turkish dad meme, which is aging, but it had about 8 to 10 times return on ad spend, which is pretty good. Um, the second one's a little bit more straightforward about Upwork versus Rocket Devs. This one didn't perform so well, but I liked Severance, so I just put this up here. And it's poking a little bit fun at agencies. And also in a way, we poke fun at ourselves here with this last piece of advertisement. And our brand of advertising works for Reddit because it doesn't really take itself too seriously. We speak acutely of the pain points of most early stage founders trying to build software, right? That's we're easy, cheap, and effective. We joke that we're probably a good option if you're traveling a well-traversed pathway like building an app, and probably a bad option if you're trying to invent a new type of blockchain on Web3. Maybe Rocket Devs isn't the way to go, but if it's straightforward, then Rocket Devs seems like a really solid option for you. The second class of advertisement that works really well for us are freeform ads. Freeform ads are essentially ads that look and feel like posts, right? Here I have an example of one freeform ad copy that to me is the GOAT of freeform ads that I've used myself to reference, and it has 19K upvotes. And that's just a massive qualifier just because it's hard to get 19K upvotes on an ad. Okay. The first reason I think it crushed it is that it owned it, that it's an ad, like right off the bat with no bullshit, right? Founder literally opens up with, first of all, yes, this is an ad. I've been active on Reddit for over 8 years and I don't like ads either. So sorry for invading your feed. So this kind of hits hard because Redditors really hate sneaky disguised ads. So by admitting it up front, he really disarms everyone. It feels human in the post. Again, it feels native to Reddit, like it could be a post, right? The second thing that he does is just total transparency in how he makes money. The third thing that he did to crack the engagement is that he left the comments open and actually replied. This kind of builds this huge trust signal because he didn't just leave them open. He jumped in and answered question, and that really humanizes him, which is, I guess, somewhat Reddity in Reddit culture. And the other thing about opening up comments is that it makes the conversation more interesting. This isn't even unique to ads. If you think about just regular posts on Reddit, sometimes I know myself, I'll just jump straight to the comments on a post, right? And if a comment doesn't have posts, it's actually inherently less interesting. And it's the same thing for ads. However, I need to say, as somebody that saw this and tried to mimic this a few times, this is actually quite difficult to nail. People really have to love what you're offering. It helps if it's free. I want to say that it's probably impossible to build 19K upvotes if it isn't like has a really generous free tier of some sort. Like I have to be real here. But at the same time, um, even if it doesn't have a free, if you're kind of doing a service, you can open up comments, but you're going to find that you're removing a lot of, I don't know, how can I say, like paraphernalia. There's just going to be Redditors that just post weird things. So I have to say that it's just going to have to be something that you moderate. However, I also have an example of this where I'm going to throw it up right now, where I ran my own freeform ad for Rocket Devs and we moderated our own discussion to some success as well. But if there isn't this huge free tier signal, you may not have a lot of success doing that, or if you just don't want to babysit your freeform ad. However, that being said, you can still do a freeform ad and not open up comments. That's totally fine. Your engagement is going to be slightly lower, but it's still a great way to go. Reddit opportunity number two is what I like to call real-time SEO, which is also free. You may or may not be aware of this, but tons of Redditors quietly advertise their own stuff for free every single day, and they make good money doing it. It can be a legit acquisition channel, especially if you are sub 1 million ARR, and it was for us at Rocket Devs for a long time. You see it increasingly more these days, and on like r/programming, r/design, r/entrepreneur. But as a result of seeing more, there's starting to be more of a backlash against this type of promotion. So you should be aware of that. But I will say that this is not just a new strategy on Reddit. There are entire B2B SaaS companies that are worth 9, 10 figures that have been doing this on Aura since 2010, like HubSpot. So it's very common to promote this way. It's just you're gonna have to be smart on how you do it. The way to plug in on Reddit is that if you want to subscribe to a certain topic, I recommend using F5bot, which pretty much emails you anytime a keyword comes up on Reddit. So let's say again that you're selling printers. Anytime the word printers comes up on Reddit, you can get an email and you can kind of come in and try to create value. And if it makes sense, you can plug in your service that way. You're not really running an ad campaign. You're just posting like a normal user. I think the key here is that you need to give value first and then naturally plug in what you do. I call it real-time SEO, and it works because usually Redditors love practical, no BS advice. Just again, make sure not to be overly promotional and you should be fine. Just be careful when you do this though, because as I mentioned, subreddits are cracking down on this. So if you do it right, people will actually thank you for it, upvote and share it, and sometimes even ask for more. It's basically free awareness, free word of mouth, and the cost is just making something genuinely useful and dropping it in the right place at the right time. Now it's time to close out this video. Threats. Let's examine a real life threat that cost me hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in revenue. The number one threat of Reddit is just its volatile community culture. Subreddits can turn hostile towards your brands overnight. So if your brand ad is seen as inauthentic or unpopular for any reason, you can really expect mass downvotes and a proper roast session that would make Gordon Ramsay blush. True story, Rocket Devs did indeed get cooked about 15 months ago, about a year and a half ago, with an accusation of astroturfing. Astroturfing is basically when you plug in your own service positively. And in this case, while the allegations were 100% true, it was also true that we were a pretty popular service at the time and we were getting recommended organically. So even with us getting roasted, one or two loyal customers did try to step in for us, but of course their comments were permanently removed. So the only comments that were really allowed to stay, for example, when people are talking negatively about us, is this one right here that I pulled up. There is decent devs, but poor project management. This really doesn't make any sense to me because the company serves as a matchmaking service, so there's no way I'm involved in your day-to-day decisions. But this kind of goes to show that logic and Reddit drama don't mix. The best way to really avoid being in this situation is just to not be in the situation, right? Because it's not going to reflect fairly on you at all. And yeah, you will lose revenue. The lesson here that my dad always says, not about business, but he always says that it only takes a drop of glass to ruin a cup of milk. And I find that's true for a lot of things, but it's also true for brands and brand safety. So as a career programmer and not a marketer, that was an expensive lesson to learn. So just best to learn from my example. And if you do decide to promote on Reddit, make sure to do it in a way that's authentic because Reddit loves its pitchforks and they're always very sharp. All in all, to summarize objectively, retargeting ads is the first major takeaway. Is just too cost effective to ignore. Just slap on that Reddit pixel and you're good to go. People that visit your website will just be reminded of your website's presence in a very cost effective and cheap manner. I would almost even put it in the category of a no-brainer. The second takeaway here is post memes or freeform content. If you do end up advertising to cold traffic, those tend to deliver best. If you had moderation time, you can open up the comments and experiment with that on freeform ads. That's going to increase your engagement by quite a bit. And the third takeaway is to be authentic because the Reddit community is absolutely brutal. So thanks for coming to my first YouTube video. I have an idea for my next video that would take some investigative work. If you're interested, just make sure to like a comment and subscribe so you don't miss it. All right, thanks.